Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from Entitled Parents. Story 1 is by Moonstone Knight. Left her kid alone in a bookstore for hours, thought it was totally normal. This here happened a while ago. I recently got reminded of it after meeting an old friend. Thought I'd share this story because I know after 13 years in retail and customer services that many people would think that what she did was okay. Back when I worked in a bookstore in a shopping mall, there was this little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, just sitting quietly in a corner, looking at the pictures of a book. At that moment, we had just noticed her because she was kind of hidden, tucked in a corner, and was totally silent. We asked where her parents were. She said her mommy was in the shop next to ours and told her to wait in the bookstore. We asked if she knew how long it had been, and she pointed to the hands of a clock where they had been when her mom left. It had been nearly 3 hours. I still can't believe that kid stayed quiet for so long, and I'm still kicking myself for not noticing her sooner. We took her to the mall security and they started looking for the mom. That brainless woman was in another mall next to ours, 3 smaller shopping malls on the same street next to each other. The mall security were shocked. One of them was a dad and went to get the kid biscuits and an apple juice. He knew right away she was really hungry after 3 hours all alone waiting. I never forgot how happy she was munching on those chocolate chip cookies and sipping her juice box. They called the police and child protection services. Me and my colleagues waited with the kid. We actually had brought the book with us for some reason, so she wouldn't be too scared. When the mom finally arrived, I swear she did not understand at all why what she did was wrong and got pissed at us for going to security. She argued that her daughter was safe in our store and that she knew not to cause trouble. That got the police suspicious because the kid was indeed very quiet and eerily well behaved. Looking back, it's kind of obvious that she was scared into being this quiet and calm child. The mother's justification was basically that since our store was selling books for kids and some toys, we were essentially babysitters, and that we were the ones in the wrong for not wanting to do our job and watch the children. Needless to say, the cops were just totally done with her and took her to the police station. The kid went with Child Protective Services. The mom was kicking and screaming, threatening to sue us for slander and defamation. Of course, that never happened. But I hope that this little girl is now with better people, that she is now with people who love and cherish her. It's completely irresponsible to leave your child in a store. Any store anywhere is not a babysitting service, so I really hope that people don't generally do this too frequently, but obviously it does happen. And what a good kid, though, to not cause problems at all and to just sit in there and read books. She seems like a really good kid. It's a shame that her mom is not so good. Our next story is by Ensnared Angel. I really like that username. Ensnared Angel. Kind of makes me think of Diablo 2, or maybe it's Diablo 3, where they have something that is an angel that's ensnared. Maybe I'm completely off the mark, though. Neighbor thinks her kids' bedtime should decide when I can do my hobbies. My neighbor, a 27 female, has 5 kids and 1 more on the way. She doesn't work. She's not ill or anything. She just chooses not to. Lives off benefits and is all sorts of entitled. Tonight I was working on my brother's birthday present, and this included needing to make a few cuts with a chop saw. It was 9 p.m. and I was done by 9:15. In my country, the curfew for noise or noise disturbance is 11:30 p.m. She then sends me this long Facebook message about how her kids' bedtime is 8 p.m., and therefore I need to not use power tools at that time, and could I only use them in the daytime as to not wake her kids. I replied saying I was done now. Bear in mind she sent that message after literally less than 10 minutes of noise, and that I couldn't confine my usage to daytime because I have a job. I could have said a lot more. I felt like saying to her, your kids are going to be living with a screaming newborn in a few months, so maybe focus on teaching them to sleep without it being perfectly silent. But I restrained myself. Even so, the very little I did say clearly set her off. She sent me another paragraph about her kids needing to be ready for school at 8 a.m. before blocking me. What do you guys think? If the curfew is 11:30 p.m., should people be able to use power tools right next to your house at 9 o'clock at night? Honestly, no matter what time of day it is, somebody's going to have an issue with the noise. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Some people work nights and they'll sleep pretty late into the day, and somebody could be using power tools when they're supposed to be asleep. It doesn't matter what you do. Somebody's going to be unhappy with the noise. But do you guys who listen think that 9 o'clock is too late for power tools? I know that if I had power tools, I just wouldn't use them at 9 o'clock. Like, for example, I would never mow my lawn past probably 7:30 or 8. That would be the absolute latest. 9 o'clock feels like it's pushing it, even if the curfew is 11:30. But people have to get things done, and if the law is on this person's side, there's not much that the mom can do about it. Down in the comments by Crew Jones 43. I have a shop and I always try to keep the power tools off after 9 p.m. Noise bylaws say 11. However, one day in the dead of winter, our furnace died. I wanted to start up my wood stove as I had a wife, 2 kids, and water pipes I didn't want to burst. I had no small pieces of wood ready. I needed to chop enough to get the fire started at 6 a.m. I absolutely hated my neighbor, but I still felt so bad making noise. I swung the axe 4 times at the wood pile between our house and then finally got the fire going. He told all my other neighbors that I always chopped wood at 6 a.m. Crew Jones, it sounds like you got one of the bad ones. It happens once and therefore you do it all the time. Some people get so mad over something and they imagine it happens all the time and they actually start to believe that it happens all the time. But yeah, it definitely sounds like you got one of the bad ones. How unfortunate. Our next story today is by Alternative Edge 1313. My mom isn't allowing me or my brother to receive our inheritance in full. Is she in the right? So in November last year, my great-uncle passed from a stroke. He lived in a farm bungalow with quite a number of acres that he owned. After his death, his land was sold for a very large amount of money. The bungalow hasn't been sold yet, but not many people are in the market for one nowadays. Anyway, fast forward a few months and our mom's explaining to us about the inheritance, and I thought, nice, I'll be able to get a new car and potentially put mortgage down for a house. I'm only 18, so I probably won't until my 20s. Then another couple months down, my brother managed to crash his second car in a month. And as he had smoked recently to that crash, when the police arrived, they drug tested him and he got done. Plonker? I gotta look that up right now. It could be a dirty word and I don't even know it. Alright, define. Oh. So apparently, plonker just means a stupid or silly person. It's an insult. She's insulting her brother in text here. Not actually sure if this is a female or a male. It just says, my brother and I. Since this incident, our mom has been drug testing us every week, and if we test positive for anything, we get the boot. I didn't help my case as I had gone to a weekend festival and did a couple drugs. My only argument is that it's the most typical setting to do the drugs I did, and at the end of the day, I'm 18 and I wanted to have a bit of fun. Try new things, you know. And when I got back, I was welcomed with a drug test, and I was out of the house for a week before I tested negative on the drugs I did. After this, she spoke with both me and my brother and told us she will not be giving us our inheritance in monthly installments. Each month, we have to test negative every week, and if we don't, or even have 1 week of that month, we don't receive the month's installment. All I'm after is, can she do this? She reckons she can, but I don't know. I've tried researching it, but I can't find much. If I can get an answer, that'll be great. I like actually reading these stories because a lot of people down in the comments have had experience with this sort of thing and they can tell people what to do. The unfortunate thing, though, is a lot of the times you need a significant amount of money to pay a lawyer to look into this sort of thing. But there were several good comments down below by Tudor Princess 1. You should get a lawyer and ask to see the will to see if you are specifically named in the will. That right there is the best thing you can do. Ask to see the will. The will is what your uncle wants done with the money. If in the will he had stipulations that said that you had to remain drug-free, like you have to please your mother in ways like obey her commands or something to get the money, then you would have to abide by the rules she's setting. But if he just left you money and she's hanging on to it, that's not cool. But there was also some other comments that were helpful. By Simple Champ. When my wife and I did estate planning, it was highly recommended that if something were to happen to us and our daughter was 18, that she not receive a large sum of money or assets. It's just bad news to give a young, inexperienced adult that much money. Lawyer recommendation was at least 25, potentially older depending on circumstances. Best is for it to go into a trust, with trustee having power to disburse amounts for acceptable purposes, school, car, house, etc. Having said all that, unless your uncle put all this kind of stuff in an estate plan, your mom is going rogue on this one and doesn't sound legal. I would be asking her, did uncle's estate documents place any restrictions on the distribution of assets or make you a trustee in his trust? If she doesn't have anything to back up what she's doing, then you will need to get a lawyer involved. Underneath that, by Jen5872. Yep, this happened to my friend's son. He inherited $50,000 from a grandparent when he was 22. It was gone in 3 months. So was the girl he was blowing it on when he wasn't using it to party day and night. It's not a simple task to be responsible with large sums of money. Now, this isn't coming from somebody who's ever had massively large sums of money. I always had a very meager income, but I made things work for most of my life. It's hard to be responsible for money, especially when you're young and you want to try new things. So, your mom drug testing you? I feel like you should still get a lawyer involved and take the advice about the trustee. Have someone else who has control of the money and gives it to you for approved purposes, acceptable purposes, so that you can't just go to them and be like, well, I want to party all weekend, so give me 10 grand, because that will go away very quickly and you'll regret it in the long run. I don't know. If he just left it to you, it's your money and you can do what you want with it. So either get a lawyer and check out the will yourself, read it in its entirety, have the lawyer explain any parts that you don't really understand, or get a trustee so that you're safer with it. I think, honestly, that your mom would probably be happy if you got some sort of trustee or trust. Then she would know that you're doing the right thing with the money and not just splurging or being wasteful or potentially endangering your life by trying all sorts of new things. Of course, this is coming from someone who's a bit of a square, who's never even smoked a cigarette in her life. So, you do what you want, whatever makes you happy. You can figure it out at this point, I'm sure. Our next story is by Human Ad 6671. Entitled Disney Adult Demands That I Change Clothes in the Middle of a Crowded Restaurant. To preface, this situation came up a few years back but still lives rent-free in my mind from how absurd it was. I was on a family vacation at Disney World a few years back. I, 19 at the time, was staying on property at a resort, but on our first night we had dining reservations at a different hotel that was a fair distance away. It was a casual buffet-style restaurant, so there was no dress code or reason to be fancy, so I wore a pair of shorts and a graphic tee of a unicorn that said, "Everything sucks," in a glittery cursive font. About halfway into our dinner, when I got up to get seconds, a woman, probably in her 40s, stepped up to physically block me and immediately started shouting in my face about obscene clothing. I just stood there completely baffled while she went on about her young children, who were calmly eating on the other side of the room, being distressed by my disgusting and inappropriate shirt, and then demanded that I take it off in the middle of the restaurant. When I told her I don't exactly carry replacement clothes with me, she demanded that I go to the gift shop and buy a new, family-friendly shirt. specifically one with Disney princesses or Minnie on it, because that's what her children would like to see. Oh, this person's insufferable. At that point, I didn't want to deal with her anymore and said that I'm not here to appeal to kids I don't even know. The waitress would have stopped me at check-in if there was a problem with my clothing, and that I just want to eat my dinner and leave. I walked away to get the rest of my meal and left her screaming at me for a few minutes before she eventually gave up. Hope those kids turned out okay. Graphic tee of a unicorn that said, "Everything sucks." If her kids are super young, the words "everything sucks" in a glittery, cursive font, they're not even going to be able to read it. It's going to look like gibberish to them. Most kids that are really young aren't going to be able to tell what it says. If these kids are old enough to be able to read cursive, they're not going to be even remotely bothered by the phrase "everything sucks." It does make me wonder if maybe there was violence against this unicorn or something else going on in the imagery. You said it was a graphic tee of a unicorn. That's not too descriptive. So maybe she was offended by something going on there, but her telling you to change into a Disney princess or Minnie shirt because her children want to see that, it makes me think this person was pranking you, because there's no way somebody's that entitled. But hey, here we are. Most of these stories are about super entitled people. And there's another one. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a colorful day.